Hi guys, and welcome to Pyro Painting. Today we've painted one of the Stormcast Eternals in the Age of Sigmar game from Games Workshop. Brilliant model to work with, mostly gold, so not much paint work to do. What we're going to do is we're going to prime it up, base it, and then we'll get down to base coats. Alright, see you in a minute. Alright guys, let's start with Retribute Armor. What we're going to do is we're going to get this down as the base coat. Pretty much goes all over the miniature. Just to make sure it's a pretty big area to cover. Only got a small brush, so it's taking a while. If you've got a bigger brush, it will take you a lot less time. I think I cranked out this mini in about 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours. If you've got a bigger brush, you could probably cut down this stage. It's less than 5-10 minutes tops. But, you know, you may do what you've got. So what we're doing at the moment is just making sure we get it everywhere. Doesn't matter if we get it into any areas we don't need the gold, because we can just simply cover that back over with the other base colours. But we've got to make sure that this gold is a complete solid colour before we carry on. You'll see paying extra detail to the stuff you especially can see when you see the miniature. There are some areas that are hidden. There were a few areas that I noticed later in the film, so I've had to go back, touch them up, but while filming you can't really see it, but you know, good coverage as it is. So we're just coming up to the last stages now. We're going to make sure we get the outside of the shield, get the crest as well, make sure that is a complete solid colour. Going to make sure we get the feet. Now, where I based the miniature before actually painting, which was a bad thing to do, I'm actually having to take extra care around the feet. Now, in hindsight, I would have based after, but you know, it's fine as it goes now. As long as you're taking extra careful, you should be fine. Again, just make sure the all those details, you know, good and solid. I think we should be coming up to the end. Again, long process because of a smaller brush. You've got a much bigger brush. The process will take you hardly any time whatsoever. Just a few final touches. Make sure you aren't missing anything. Yep, looks solid. You should be okay with that. So now here, I've actually put a wash over this. Didn't film it, took too long. It's just a basic wash, Recklin Flesh Shade. Good coverage for gold, makes it give it a nice warm feel, where no oil kind of dampens it down a bit too much. It's a nice feel for the actual model. So now we're going to go 25% Liberator Gold to the Retribute Armor. Now what we're going to do here is just a dry brush, get all the areas, get it all over. Make sure you pay attention to the recesses, make sure they're staying as the Retributor with the wash on. Get all the protruding lines so that you can really make the miniature pop. Now, it's a simple process. If anyone hasn't heard of dry brushing, simply getting the paint, wiping off on the sheet. Alright, now we're up to Night World Blue. This is going to be for the shield and part of the armour. Now, the only things we have to be really careful with is the gold, because we've already shaded, we've already dry brushed it. We don't want to have to go back over that process. Now the white lightning bolts that you'll see come up later, that's fine to touch, because we can just going to touch that up later until we get to that colour that we want. But we're going to pay extra detail to the gold parts, make sure we don't get any on it. If it gets on some of the edges, it's kind of okay because we can just go over it when we go into the hedge highlights. So we're just going up to the shoulder now. Shoulder's a pretty much big area, especially on his left shoulder. His right shoulder's got a hammer on it, which can make it a little bit tricky. There's a few lightning bolts hanging off it as well. There's a few lightning bolts coming up from the armour onto the middle of the crest. Again, pay extra careful, make sure you don't go over it. You don't want to have to go back, do all of your work again, and spend more time than you need to. So as you can see, taking extra care, making sure you don't hit any of that gold. Otherwise it's going to take so long to get back into that position where we're going to be back with Night World Blue. So now we're just doing what I can only describe as a loincloth. Doing all the pieces of tassels hanging from the waist. Now the middle of the loincloth will be a silver plates. Doesn't matter if we get it on there, the silver should cover it quite well. But we just got to make sure that we get every colour. Make sure we get a back of it as well. Don't want it looking a bit odd once we get it onto the table. Again, big surface area, pretty easy to paint in. Again, shield as well. This makes it a little bit more eye-popping, especially if you see it from a different angle than just seeing a big block of gold. Now, with all of my Age of Sigmar Stormcast Eternals, we're doing this colour scheme. So now we're up to Machine Gun Metal from Army Painter. It's a good colour. Not the darkest of silvers, but it works well, especially for this kind of weaponry and this kind of feel to the things that you want to do. So we're giving a good base coat on the hammer. Make sure we get into all those little rivets, all the recesses. Now onto the belt, loincloth. Make sure we get good coverage on that. Now we're doing a 50-50 mix, a flat red and purple, both of them by Vallejo. Now this is going to be for the grip of the hammer, and also the hilt of the dagger on his side. Now it's my own blend, but it's kind of a good mix to use. So it looks kind of magenta-ish, and it looks well with the miniature. Once you put a little bit of wash on there, highlight it up a bit, it looks brilliant. So now we're just going to make sure we get every single part of it. Now onto brain sand. Now this will just be from the bit of tapestry that's hanging from the waist. What we're going to do is we're going to coat it in a brain sand first. This will be our base colour. Then we're going to darken it down with the washes. We're going to bring it back up at a later point. What that does is that makes that recess lettering stand out a little bit more once you see it, instead of it just being a plain wash on a used Sharpie bone. Next colour, Drakenhof Nightshade. This is for all the blue areas. It's not really needed, but I like it considering it gives a little bit more depth at the edges of your protruding areas, especially around that gold. If you can get it perfectly up to the line without hitting the gold, it looks amazing. So now just make sure we go all over the areas. Again, if you can get close to the line, get right into that nook and cranny, look excellent, especially next to gold. So good vision shot of the shield as well. Make sure we're getting a good coverage on that, especially if we're going to want that a little bit darker. Now we're on to null oil. Now null oil is going to be for the hammer and any part silver. So we're going to get good coverage. Make sure we get into all of those little gaps, because we want to make sure that the actual silver pops out against that wash. Here we go with Agate Surf Shade. Now what we're going to do is going to get the hilt. We're going to get the tapestry hanging from his waist. Now at this point, as you can see, the film became a little bit iffy. What we're doing is just basically getting a base coat all over that tapestry and all over the handle, so that it sinks into the recesses and that we can bring it up perfectly at the later stage. So there we are, that's what we're looking at after the washes. Now you can keep it at that. It's a good tabletop standard, nothing to worry about there. But we're going to take it up a notch. We're going to make it a little bit better. So we're going to use Night World Blue. Night World Blue, what I've done is I've watered this down. Just going to add a little bit onto the shoulder. It's kind of like a glaze kind of texture. This is just to bring it up onto them shoulders, making the darker parts of it a real recess, so that it really pops when you're actually doing it. So going around the shield, making sure that we get a nice area coverage on it, keeping the shade in the recesses, makes that blue pop a lot more. So we're done with that one. Now we're going to go ultramarine blue. Now what we're going to do with this is going to edge highlight all the blue. Now the style I've tried to use for all my GW miniatures, anything I've painted made by them, is to use what they've classed it as in the company heavy metal. Now with heavy metal, it's highlight upon edge highlight. All is edge highlight. So I've tried to replicate this to a standard which, you know, people will be able to pick up relatively easy. They're pretty easy enough to do. It's just making sure that you get around all those lines, get the highest pieces inside, making your eyes drawn directly to that area. Some cases can be over the top, but from a distance makes it look a lot better. So what I've done here, I made a glaze of the ultramarine blue, stuck in the areas, and then realised, you know, I don't like it. We'll keep it that normal blue. So now we're on to Runefang Steel. Runefang Steel is going to be to edge highlight, again, of all the hammer, the metal work. We're going to make sure it really, really stands out. In all fairness, should have done a bit more edge highlighting as well, just to make it really pop. But for a tabletop standard, which we're trying to achieve here, this is perfect. Again, get on my line glove, simple. Now we're going to go around the armour on all along the raised areas where you'd expect the light to hit the most. Now what this does, you know, even though it's not a gold to go on the gold, it adds this point of reference where the light hits and it looks extremely bright, which adds a brilliant effect to the miniature itself. You can see we're just going around the edges now, making sure they pop. Get around the belt, get around all that gold, make sure it works. Go on top of the knees. Feet, especially with the feet, you want to make it look like that light is really, really coming down and sitting hard on the miniature. Again, all the highest areas, that Runefang Steel. Make sure we get on there, get a good coat. And we're just doing now, make sure we go over the fingers, back of the hands, any joints in the armour, anything that's sticking upwards. We're going to keep going until we're done. So now we're up to Eshin Grey. Now Eshin Grey is going to be to highlight any of the black, which will be on the belt, back of the knees, the fabric on it. It's also going to be for the sword holder. Now we're up to Space Wolf Grey. Space Wolf Grey is just going to be a base coat for us to be able to put the white down at a later stage. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw the lightning bolts. Pretty simple. If you've got a steady hand, you should be able to do this relatively easy. As you can see, done it in seconds really. Especially on the 1 second. On the opposite sides of my hand, find it a bit harder. But we're just basically getting this down to establish a lot brighter colour than the blue. You could keep it at this colour. Nothing wrong with that. But if you really want it to pop, you need to take it to the next stage and get that white on there. It's a cheap white. It's titanium white by Chiltern. You want to get it down onto that lightning bolt. So now I've put that on a little bit thick. That's fine. I'll come up at a later stage, off camera, and I'll fix it up. Won't be no problem. Pretty simple to do. Just making sure we get all that white down. Got it done. Now we want to use Shabti Bone. Now we're going to concentrate onto the base. So now with the base, we're going to dry brush on that Shabti Bone. Make sure we get quite a lot of the paint off, because as it looks like there's a lot on there, there's hardly anything. We just want that to hit all the stones in raised areas. So now we're going with a bit of PVA glue. So what we're doing here, we're going to add a bit of static grass, to add a bit of tufts here and there. Be 2 on the miniature, 1 in the front, 1 in the behind. Just to, bring a bit of attention to the base. Adding this feature makes it a lot better. So now we're going to use a bit of Spring 4mm. This is by WWS. So we're just going to add a little bit of a tweezer full. Manipulate it a bit. On the back tuff, shouldn't have took so long, but I reckon the end result looks quite well. So we're just making sure that we push it, and if we push against it, it kind of sticks up, which is quite nice. Makes it look like a proper tuff. So there's the finished article. I think it's a good job. Well done. Right guys, you can see, simple as that. That's a nice little fact. Obviously the basin does a lot. Now like I said, in hindsight, I would have done a basin at a later point, but I think it works well. It's a nice little coverage. As I said, with a little bit of parchment that's hanging off the actual armour. The brown sand actually gives you a little bit of a darker recess, which makes it look nice from a distance. Again, Quite see that Varunfang steel? Again, makes that armor pop, makes it look out. So I mean, this is the last one we did. So the one that we've just been working on is this one. So as you can tell, pretty much the same design. You know, I try to keep everything on its own. So you know, it's a single unit. Gotta make sure that they stay the same. With this one, there's a few marks here and there that needs a bit of a touch up. The parchment needs tidying up. Again, it's a simple fix. There's nothing really hard. Just hit it up. But as you can see, that white really does pop. So now, if we put the white down straight onto that, you know, that blue, the dark blue, it wouldn't be that bright. So we have to establish that lighter color first, just to bring it up. So now, that's the finished article. Now, the next couple of videos will be concentrating around Age of Sigmar. So, if you're interested, please stay tuned. And we'll be doing more. The next video will be for the quarantine. Probably going to do a Blood Reaver, you know, something along those lines. Just to keep in theme that we're doing both sides. Alright, see you again.